Well, welcome back, friends. Today we are going to be tackling a project that is so long overdue. We're going to be making over my very messy pantry. This is a project that I've been wanting to do for realistically years now, but I've just been putting off. The timing was never quite right. But today we are going to be giving it a major makeover. We're going to be doing custom shelves, organizing it, and really trying to address some of the problems that make it so that this space just keeps getting messy no matter what I try. I've done a lot of band-aid fixes in the past, but today I want to get to the root of the messiness and try to come up with some solutions that will make it so it's easy for us to keep this space organized long term. We've got our work cut out for us today, and realistically this will probably take a handful of days, so let's get right to it. Okay, so starting off, I began with just removing everything from the shelves. Wanted to give ourselves a blank slate to work with. There really was a ton here. I feel like sometimes when I know that I want to do a certain project, I just tend to let things get a bit more messy and disorganized even than I normally would. Not that the space was tidy before, but it truly was a disaster. So removed everything, and then after that I began disassembling the shelves. Thought this would be easier than it is. How to disassemble wire shelving. I had to remove the old shelves first, and this ended up being a lot harder than I expected. Removing the actual shelves from the wall wasn't that bad, but removing the anchors that held it in place was such a pain, required a lot of manpower. We ended up using a large wrench to get most of them out, which worked well, but did leave some larger holes in the wall. So afterwards, I went in with a bit of spackling just to fill those in. Got everything all patched, and I gave it some time to dry, just taped down the floor, so now we're ready to paint. Okay, let's talk painting. I decided to paint this space for a number of reasons. Obviously, we had just had to patch a whole bunch of holes in the wall, so wanted to cover those over. But then also, this closet was never actually painted when we first moved into the house. We had the entire main living area painted a really beautiful soft white color, but we didn't bother having that done with any of the closets, so this was still a kind of sad gray color. So I just decided to paint this pantry the same color as the rest of the living space. I did debate doing a fun color wallpaper or something like that, but I decided that I just wanted the food, all the colors and textures of that to speak for themselves. And as an added bonus, it meant that I didn't need to buy any additional paint. And this is what it looked like after 2 coats of paint, so much brighter. Then while I was painting, Christopher was hard at work assembling the frame for the pantry. The one thing that we did like about the previous pantry was the general placement of the shelves. So we wanted to replicate that, but give the shelves that we were putting in a more custom and built-in look. So we used 2x2s for the frame, first cutting out a basic box shape, not joining them yet, but just laying them out, and then on one of the pieces that would run lengthwise, we added in 3 additional support braces to make them more sturdy. We used wood glue and pocket holes to join them and to hide where the screws were going in. Then with the support pieces finished, it was time to start putting everything in. We began by drilling and securing 2 studs, the cleats for the shelves. That's basically just the support pieces that would hold up the plywood we'd be putting on top. This is really where the strength of the shelves comes in, allows them to be able to hold a considerable amount of weight without needing some kind of support column like we had previously. This is what it looked like when we were finished. Then we went in and added the rest of the frame, again using pocket holes and wood glue to secure it all. Our original plan was just to put in all of the support pieces and then add in the upper and lower pieces of plywood after. But as we were doing this top one, we realized that we were actually going to need to put in the plywood as we went. Otherwise, just because of the way that the pantry was constructed, we wouldn't be able to get them in. So what we ended up doing was pausing on the framework, putting in the upper and lower pieces of plywood, and then going back in after that, once all the plywood was in place, and drilling in the braces. Final step in assembling the bones of the shelves was to secure the two pieces of plywood that would form the top and bottom of each shelf. So in order to do this, we used liquid nails and a brad nailer to secure each board in place. I'll try to list out and share links to everything that we used for this project in the description box below, but the boards that we used for the top of the shelves were 1/2 inch plywood, and then we used hardboard for the bottom of the shelves. So at this point, the actual structural part of the shelves was complete, but because we wanted them to have a very polished and finished look to them, we decided to add these 1x3 boards to the front to hide all the layers that went into assembling these shelves. And again, we just used a brad nailer to affix them in place. So this is what it looked like at the conclusion of day one, and then I just spent the next couple of days here and there whenever I had time doing some finishing touches and getting everything ready to paint. So I did wood filler wherever we put in brad nails, and then also to fill in the seams, caulked wherever the shelves met the wall, and then I primed and painted everything. I did 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of paint on everything, and then also went in with a 3rd coat of paint just in a couple spots that needed it. Well, good morning. It is a new day. It's actually been several days since I last picked up a camera. I think the last thing that I filmed was us priming and painting the shelves, and after we finished that, we went in, did some final touch-ups, sanded a couple things down, repainted. Just wanted everything to feel finished and kind of higher quality. So we did that, and I love how these came out. We've given them a couple of days just to cure, but let me show you them close up. They came out looking so good. Okay, but then with the shelves done, it was time to begin organizing everything, putting it back in the pantry. There was so much here to go through that I really found it helpful to narrow in my focus on just trying to tackle a category or two of items at a time. Like always, when I'm decluttering or organizing a space, I like to work from easiest to hardest. So I began with what to me felt like some of the most obvious categories of things that I wanted to organize. We have a lot of bars around here, granola bars, protein bars, all of that. So I dedicated a bin to those, one to quick snacks. I just started with what I had the clearest vision for, what felt the most intuitive, and then worked my way towards some of the harder, the miscellaneous items. Then after that, I decided to repurpose these two Lazy Susan turntables that I had. I had been using them to store some dried goods and snacks, but that hadn't really been working all that well. I don't love mason jars to store things. They're kind of inconvenient. So instead, I thought it would be really helpful to use them to store some of our oils, vinegars, other baking ingredients, things that previously had been kind of inconvenient to get to while stored in a bin. I thought that this would be just a nice, quick, easy way to be able to access them. And that's the thing, sometimes organization really is just about incremental improvements. The previous turntables were helpful to an extent, but these are already proving to be an absolute game changer. I really like the approach of putting things back in as I go. Of course, there's a lot of reshuffling and just playing around with things that needs to take place to find the perfect home for everything. I think that's just all part of the process. And speaking of part of the process, not every single idea I have makes its way into the final organization of a space. Recently, Christopher ordered, for some reason, a lifetime supply of sunflower seeds. Like literally, I think there's 12 bags of sunflower seeds. I had to get a larger bin because he had so many that they didn't all fit in the first one that I got. But since there were so many of them, I thought it would be a good idea to put them all in their own separate bin. You'll see I end up later just completely changing my mind on this. I could have just not included the footage here, but I think that it's a really good example of sometimes when you're organizing, you just need to try something to see if it works and then pivot if a better option presents itself. One of my favorite upgrades we made in this space was swapping all of our random cereal boxes, granola bags for these cereal containers. I didn't even realize it, but I think we had 3 different granola bags all open at once. So this is going to make keeping the food fresh so much easier. I put all of our chips and popcorn, those larger bagged goods, in a couple of baskets, used this tiered tray to hold some of our specialty spices, sprinkles, and other baking bits that we don't use as frequently. Okay, but then something that I'd struggled a lot with in the past was backstock. I never really found a way that I liked of storing backstock items, and the bins we'd use for it were constantly overflowing. So what I decided to try doing was using kind of a larger crate to store backstock items, but so I wouldn't forget what was inside, because I knew that that was definitely a possibility. I made a list of everything that I put in here so that whenever I'm running low on something, I can just check the list, see if I have it on hand, and if I have it, I can just refill whatever container it was that was running low, and if not, I'll know that I need to buy more of that item. I shared the list with Christopher too, that way we can both use it. Oh, and it was about this time that I realized that I could totally put the sunflower seeds in here, so I just added them to the bin as well. And something you'll notice is, for the most part, I tried to reuse as many bins and containers for this project as possible. That said, I did invest in a handful of containers that I felt would make the biggest difference in this space. Like, I picked up a set of these glass jars with bamboo lids for our baking ingredients, and you'll see later I also purchased one for our snacks. We just had so many random containers, it was always hard to find what I was looking for. Some of them didn't seal properly, so couldn't tell if things were staying fresh or not. So these really just helped us streamline all of that. I just created labels for everything using this embossed label maker. I love it because it's so easy to swap out the labels if I ever decide to fill one of those containers with something else. Then I just did the same thing with some of our larger dried goods. I decided I wanted to dedicate this shelf to all of our baking essentials, so I got most of them out here and then just spent a bit of time playing around to figure out where I liked having everything best. A handful of other specialty containers that we picked up were these ones for pasta. I love how they have the cork lid to them. It looks so cool. It's really nice that these are tall enough to store spaghetti too. They ended up being the perfect height to fit in our shelves. Okay, then at this point we were left with a bunch of miscellaneous items, just random things that didn't fit in with anything else that we'd assembled so far. So just started putting them aside to deal with them at the end. The last category that I wanted to tackle though first was our snacks. We go through a ton of nuts, seeds, dried fruit, and just other snacks, and I wanted to have just an easy, convenient way to store them because you can kind of see it from the pile on the right. We had so many just bags of all of those little bits. So I used some more of those glass containers to pour everything into, but I did decide with these ones not to do labels for them. That way they'd just be ultra easy to swap out at any point in the future when I want to try out a different kind of nut, seed, or anything like that. Especially with things like nuts, dried fruit, it's usually pretty easy to tell what's inside at a glance. I just spent a final few minutes tackling those last couple of items. We've got everything restocked and organized now. The difference in here truly is night and day. I want to take you on a tour, show you where everything ended up, how it looks now. But I feel like in order to truly appreciate that, we need to look back to where we started. So this is a little reminder of how things began. And this is what our pantry looks like now. All right, let's go on a little pantry tour, shall we? Up here on the right, I've just got a couple large bins with all of our bagged goods like chips, popcorn, larger items. We've got Christopher's protein powder, and then in the corner here is a Lazy Susan with a lot of our less frequently reached for spices and little baking goods. So we've got things like sprinkles, sesame seeds up there. Then this next shelf is where most of our baking goods are. So you've got all of our flours here, cocoa powder, baking powder, all of the essentials that we need in order to cook, to make things from scratch, which is something that we love to do. Also got some pastas stored here. Then down on this shelf, we have our spice collection. This is a project that I did a few years back, which to this day is probably one of my favorite organization projects. It's something that had a huge impact and that we use all the time. We've got a couple of Lazy Susans here. This one is the more cooking focused one. So we've got our oils, vinegars, cooking sprays, all of that on that one. And then this one is more baking focused. So we've got things like honey, peanut butter, other bits there as well.
And then in the corner here, we have some white rice, rolled oats, again, just more cooking essentials. Then this is sort of our breakfast and snack shelf. So we've got some cereals there, the two on the left, the granola and Special K, we always have, then the one on the right. Figure we'll just switch out depending on what we have, whatever we're maybe wanting to try in a given season or time. Then in this corner, we've got all of our nuts, seeds, some other snack foods, and that's again something that is probably going to just change over time what we have in them. Actually, you'll notice that I didn't label them, and that way I just figured it would make it even easier to swap them out. There's no labels to change, and that way I don't need to be super consistent about what's in there. I can swap everything out really easily. Then we've got our bar bin here, some snacks in this back one that are just easy to reach for. So we've got like seaweed snacks, some oatmeal packets, again, that will rotate out depending on what we're feeling. And then on the bottom here, we've got our backstock bin on the floor. Can see inside, and you saw I made a list of everything that's inside. I also shared that with Christopher so we can kind of tag team keeping that updated, and I really think that that's going to be a great solution. I always hated how messy our old backstock area was. And then on the left here, we've just got some kind of miscellaneous items that are open. They're not backstock, but that just didn't really fit with any of the other categories that we had. So things like crackers, we have some, I don't know, just little like powders, the sunflower seeds, some extra granola, things like that. Wanted to just have a spot where we can put some of those items, so just put everything into those two bins there. My hope is this can be a way of essentially just giving a home to the items that otherwise wouldn't have a home and would just end up cluttering up and making a mess in the rest of the pantry. I think it goes without saying that I am obsessed with how this project came out. Love the fact that we were able to reuse a lot of the bins, containers that we already had, while also adding in a handful of new ones that I think really going to make it a lot easier to keep this space organized and tidy going forward. But that's a wrap on another home project. I hope that you enjoyed coming along today for this pantry transformation. I know that it's made me at least so excited to start baking and cooking with this newly organized space. Now, I would love to hear from you. Did you have any questions about how we did anything, my approach, all of that, or what was your favorite part? Be sure to let me know your questions, thoughts, all of that in the comments below. And as always, friends, don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a great day, guys. Bye.